Okay, so continuing further on it's going to be a series of discussing ancient deities from Syria and Mesopotamia and other areas of the ancient Near East. But I did my first video on the god Itur-Mer of Mari, of the Mari kingdom, and I want to kind of continue with that and focus on the god Mer for the second video. And there will be some more on Itur-Mer, like just comparing the two and just further delving into this deity named called Mer, or Wer. He was also called Wer or Mer. Um, so we will further delve into that then. This is a deity that was worshipped in Bronze Age Syria and Mesopotamia, but he also continues on into the Iron Age as well. So stay tuned for that as well. So okay, we'll go over this here. This will be interesting. So the deity Wer, or also known as Mer, Bur, and Iluwer, was a weather god worshipped in parts of Mesopotamia and ancient Syria. It is presumed that he was originally one of the main deities of the northern parts of these areas, but his cult declined in the second half of the second millennium BC. The nature of the relation between him and the god Itur-Mer, the protective god of Mari, is disputed by researchers. Of course, we just did a video on Itur-Mer, so I wanted to do this video in relation to that video as well, plus get into further details on, the deity Mer. In an old Babylonian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Wer is described as the master of the monster Humbaba. So that's the guardian monster of the Cedar Land in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Though in other versions of this narrative, this role instead belongs to Enlil. Right. So that's interesting because Enlil, that's how I always recognized that story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is that Humbaba was Enlil was the master of the monster Humbaba. So this is the first time hearing there's a version where Wer is. Okay, that's interesting. Two forms of the name, Wer and Mer, were originally in use. A third version, Bur, started to be commonly used in the Middle Assyrian period. I actually did not know that. Additionally, god lists attest the form Iluwer, the god Wer. That's what Iluwer means. Il or Ilu means god, or the god. The spelling Mer was consistently employed in texts from Mari and nearby areas, with the chronologically most recent example being the theophoric name Tukulti-Mer. That was a contemporary of Ashur-bel-Kala. Let's see who Ashur-bel-Kala is. King of Assyria in the late Bronze Age. Or is that early Iron Age? That's 1074 to 1056 BC. Okay. Huh. Okay. So from the second, yeah. While Wer was the form used in southern Mesopotamia. Okay, so the spelling Mer was consistently employed in texts of Mari, from Mari and nearby areas. And then Wer was used more in southern Mesopotamia between the beginning of the period of the third dynasty of Ur. Now that's that's 22nd and 21st centuries BC, long, long time ago, to the end of the reign of the first dynasty of Babylon. Let's see what the date is here. That's 1894 to 1595 BC, as well as the old Assyrian sources contemporary with the texts from Kanesh. Ber predominates only in the Middle Assyrian and Neo-Assyrian texts. Okay. Whether Miru, or possibly to be read as Muru, attested in sources from the early dynastic period, is the same deity as Wer, is uncertain. Could be. While multiple Sumerian etymologies have been proposed for the name, including Im-Mer, which means north wind, Murmur, which means storm, and Emisal-Mer, which means wind. Okay. None have been conclusively proven. It might have been let's see. Whether a connection existed between the theonym Wer/Mer and place names such as Mari and Warum is uncertain too. Oh, I never even thought of that. That's so obvious too. That's interesting. It could be accidental in the case of Mari, it's saying, but we don't know for sure. Which we don't know for sure. So the character of the deity. Wer was a weather deity. He was a weather god. Available sources might indicate that he was originally one of the main deities worshipped in northern Mesopotamia, but eventually declined in the middle of the 2nd millennium BC due to loss of his cult sites. Wer's symbol was a lance. Okay. A single old Babylonian text attests that not only Wer himself, but also a deification of his emblem, Sukuruum, which means lance, could be an object of worship. Okay. Interesting. While god lists starting with An equals Anum, now that's means the great god list. It's a well-known preserved Mesopotamian god list. So while god lists starting with that particular list could consider Wer analogous to the deity Ishkur or Adad, storm god, the well-known storm deity from Mesopotamia. His own name was never represented by the logogram for the deity Ishkur. That's interesting. Unlike these of other storm gods, such as Hurrian Teshub, Hattian Taru, Hittite Tarhuna, and Luwian Tarhuns, or Tarhunzus. But he is a weather deity. The feminine form of the name, Wertum or Mertum, likely designated the wife of Wer. She is attested in Ashur, in the Old Assyrian period, and in a theophoric name from Mari. One of the city gates from the Old Assyrian period in Ashur was named after her. Interesting. A number of Assyriologists assume that Wer was the same deity as Itur-Mer, who we just did a video on, the protective god of Mari, but this view is regarded as unsubstantiated by others, who point out that the latter's name is an ordinary theophoric name, which likely means Mer has turned to me, or Mer has returned. And that for this reason he is more likely to be a deified hero venerated as part of an ancestral cult tied to a specific location. Known texts additionally do not indicate that Itur-Mer was a weather deity, like Wer. Other deities who are most likely deified heroes or kings in origin are attested from Mari. For example, the deity protective god of Turka, Yakrub-El, a second deity worshipped in Mari whose name is structured similarly and also includes Wer as the theophoric element, is Taram-Mer, which means beloved of Mer. So my thoughts on this are, I think it can't conclusively be settled that there's no connection between the god of Mari, Itur-Mer, and the god Mer, because the names are, it's just so obvious. They're so directly associated with each other. So I don't know of a deity of that much importance to Mari. Like, he's the second highest god of the kingdom of Mari, right behind Dagon. In only one instance was he just like the third deity. In that instance, it was Shamash. So, but I kind of lean towards the deity Itur-Mer being closely associated with the god Mer. And even though the evidence isn't there directly for Itur-Mer himself being a weather deity, I just feel like that connection that with the names is just so too closely related for him not to be like a local variant of the god Mer. That's just where I'm personally leaning towards Itur-Mer being a local variant of the god Mer. That's just where like I said, that's where I'm personally leaning towards with this, with the relation between the two deities, and not just a deified hero or ancestor, or like a deified king. It's possible, like, I'm just leaning towards what I said. I'm just leaning towards him being more closely related to the god Mer than a deified hero or king in the ancestral cult. That's just where I'm personally leaning towards. But yeah, you others listening though, let me know what you think. Is the most likely. Like, just I definitely would love to hear from others' thoughts on that. Known copies of a single passage from the incantation series Sherpu alternate between Wer and a deity named Imuria. Imuria? It cannot be established if the latter, who is otherwise best known from an inscribed statue possibly taken as bounty by Untash Napirisha, was related to him in any way. Oh, that's interesting. Imuria. Well, that sounds like a storm deity's name too. I bet it is. I bet there's a relation between those two deities. Now, Untash Napirisha is an Elamite king. Yeah. That's not till that's 1300 BC. So that's a late. That's interesting. Huh. That's a late text for the deity Were. Worship of Were is chiefly attested from the Middle Euphrates area, northern Babylonia, though only before the Middle Babylonian period. The Diyala region, the Diyala area, that is it's a river. The Diyala is a river and tributary of the Tigris. Okay, so northern Iraq there. So the Diyala region and Assyria, while confirmed attestations go back to the time of the Akkadian Empire, only from the Old Babylonian period onward, the god is known from sources other than theophoric names. Okay. Look at this. Second Old Babylonian period is... yeah, from 1894 to 15... can't even read that. 95 BC. And onward. Were appears in 9 types of masculine theophoric names from Old Babylonian Mari, with 8 using the spelling Mer and 1 Were. Furthermore, the names of the local deities... so Mer and were known in Mari, obviously. Furthermore, the names of the local deities Itur-Mer and Turam-Mer are both agreed to be theophoric names invoking him. See, that's another reason why I think... I mean, the names themselves are invoking the god Mer. Other sites where names invoking him are attested include Sippar, Babylonian city of Sippar, various locations in Assyria, and the Diyala region. Puzur-Wur, or Puzrish Dagon, and the city of Larsa, or Ubar-Wur. Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. A possible 7th century BC attestation of a theophoric name, including invoking him as Ber, D.N. Okay, usually interpreted as Danu Ber, which means Ber is strong, is known from an Aramaic papyrus found in Saqqara in Egypt. Wow. However, the restoration, though, is not certain, and and caution should be maintained. Okay. References to veneration of Were, other than theophoric names, are absent from the corpus of Mari texts. Well, I mean, Itur-Mer and Turam-Mer are more than just theophoric names. I mean, they're actual deities too. And Itur-Mer is very high on the list. Though a place named Bob Mer or Ka Mer is attested in a single source from the Sakanaku period, and that is, well, let's see. Okay. Furthermore, later texts from the kingdom of Kana attest the existence of a house of worship dedicated to him. Itur-Mer, okay, in nearby Turka. So the god was known all throughout that area and region. He was also apparently worshipped in Nerebtum, Shadupum, and Kakalatum. Now, let's see here. These are like Shadupum was part of the kingdom of Eshnuna in the Old Babylonian period. Eshnuna. See what this says here. A school text from Kanesh. Now, Kanesh is was an Assyrian trading colony in Anatolia. Mentions him alongside the god Ashur. That's interesting. In the Neo-Assyrian period, he was worshipped in Ashur. Oh, I didn't know that. In the temple of Ishtar Ashuritu. That's the Assyrian Ishtar. And in Nineveh, in the temple of Ashur. He is also mentioned on the Antakya stele of Adad Nirari III, alongside Ashur, Adad, sin of Haran, that's the moon god of Haran, and other deities. So this is he has survived into the Neo-Assyrian period. Additionally, in the same period, Iluwer, most likely the same deity, was worshipped by the Aramaeans in Tel Afis in Syria. That's the kingdom of Hamath, the Aramean kingdom of Hamath. He's mentioned like on the attested on the stele of King Zakur. Yeah. That was 785 BC, so that's pretty late. In a section, so this is the last part here before we wrap it up. In a section of an old Babylonian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, preserved on the so-called Yale tablet, corresponding to tablet 3 on the standard version, Enkidu mentions that the cedar mountain to which Gilgamesh wants to venture is under the control of the god Wer, described as mighty and never sleeping, and as the one who appointed the monster Humbaba as its guardian. That is interesting. Adad, the god Adad, is also associated with Wer in the same passage. In other versions of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Humbaba's master is Enlil. So yeah, that's the version I know. I didn't know about this other version. That is very curious. Even on the Yale tablet, it is mentioned that he bestowed 7 terrors upon him. It's assumed that while the mountain belongs to Wer, and he appointed Humbaba as its guardian and his second in command, the decision still had to be approved by Enlil. Okay, well. And there we go. That is where we will wrap it up. So, very interesting on the god Wer or Mer. I like to call him Mer, I think, but both are valid. And let me know your thoughts on the god, the deity Mer below. And we will be back with more deity descriptions shortly.